Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Devlin Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm so happy to be speaking with you today on the phrase 42 days for 42 years. If you have been hanging around this community for a while, you likely have heard this referred to. It's interesting that I don't actually know if my teacher coined this or if she learned it from somewhere else, but I first came across this phrase around 2009 when I first began studying Ayurveda and postpartum care with the late Yesha Oakes. Yesha was the founder of the original Sacred Window School. She was well connected in Ayurvedic circles and had a deep commitment for caring for mothers, caring for new families, and her dedication to working with this group of people really caught on, and a number of students began to study with her. She developed a program, she developed ways that she could mentor people and work with students near and far. And I'm really grateful to have been one of those people. When I first heard the phrase 42 days for 42 years, I understood it I understood it on a theoretical level, because how can we really know exactly what excellent postpartum care, during those 6 weeks, being fed well, being nourished well, being well rested as much as we can, working through the transition into parenthood on a physical level, on an emotional level, a sensory level, spiritual level, identity level. There's so many ways that we're newly becoming. And so when I was first learning with Yesha, I was young. I was a new parent myself. I knew that postpartum care was not something that was emphasized enough for people. I knew that I felt a calling to go deeper into caring for people during this time because it was so needed. And yet, the concrete lived experience of truly understanding how beneficial this type of care is down the line was something I was just told. And it was this phrase that just, we just said it. We just told it to everybody. 42 days for 42 years. When we get excellent care during the first 42 days, it will impact our health, our radiancy, our ability to be the best that we can be, that we'd like to be for the next 42 years. And so this episode is something I felt called to record because I realized that I am nearly halfway to that 42-year mark, meaning I first gave birth about 20 years ago, a little bit less, but my oldest child is graduating from high school, and there's a lot of emotion and a lot of looking closely at who I've become and who he's becoming, and the journey that I've traveled. And I can see a perspective now that I couldn't see back then. And I thought perhaps it might be one that's useful to you as you're sort of sitting with this idea of, I know this is important. I know postpartum care is really important, but you know, what actually is the impact for people as we move further into different stages of parenting, into different stages of living and becoming ourselves. And I find that it is tremendously impactful. And there's three ways that I wanted to explore. And I thank you, those of you who are listening, because I think this is as much about me kind of really looking closely and honoring, frankly, the journey that I've taken. But I would not be recording this or standing as the director of the Sacred Window Studies community if it were not for these experiences and for my teachers, including Isha, and for the impact that this work has. So let's look a little bit at three manifestations of the teaching 42 days for 42 years as I'm noticing it's opened in my own life experience. And every single person is going to have their own understanding, their own impact, their own digestion of what this care does for them over the long term. In Ayurveda, every one of us has our own unique state of balance and our own unique constitution. And so, what I share here today is really reflective of me, but I tend to widen out into the universal as a practice. I tend to get really wide and find connections and find ways to link what I see to the world or humanity as a greater whole of oneness. And so that's just how I roll. So I think potentially you'll find some resonance in what I'm talking about here. Now, there's so much about postpartum care and Ayurveda that is very practical. There's so much that we can do, and this episode is not really about the individual caregiving pieces because you can buy the cookbooks, you can take the courses, and you can learn all of those specifics, and they're so fun and they're wonderful and they are beneficial on so many levels. But here we're talking about sort of the macrocosm that holds all of those individual actions. And when we look at the universe, the earth, nature, we're looking ultimately at a set of qualities. And what I have found so impactful is the simultaneous incredible practicality and universal connection of looking at the qualities. In Ayurveda, we call them the gunas, the 20 qualities, 10 pairs of opposite qualities. And what we see, what we learn when we start to practice care based on an Ayurvedic lens is we start to simply see what is happening in my body at this moment and what needs to shift. And when I look closely at what's happening, I start to see the qualities. I'm taking like zooming myself back into a moment in postpartum that felt really, really hard. I had a little baby and I had a toddler, and I felt like I was breaking. I was alone at the time. My husband was out of town, and I remember really reaching a breaking point. And something happened in that moment where I reached for my universal understanding of myself as a part of the natural world. And I started looking at the qualities. And I recognized that I was unstable, I was depleted. There was dryness. I probably hadn't been drinking water. I was certainly very tired. I felt shakiness. So I realized in that breaking point moment that I had to steady. And I started to breathe. And I probably got myself some tea. But I remember it was this very clear parenting moment where it wasn't even that I needed to make some decisions that were about me personally and my own self-care, though that was part of it. It was a parenting moment of how can I be here for these children and how can I do it the way that I want to do it, which is steady, which is calm, which is grounded, which is loving. And it was that moment of being able to discern what's actually happening right now and what is it that I need more of? What is it that I need less of? What is it that I need more of? And it's that piece of it that is the game changer. It is the ability to discern what qualities are in excess and what qualities are in depletion, and knowing how to bring in the qualities that will balance that. And that is at the heart of the Ayurvedic lens of health. And while I learned that initially in Ayurveda school, learning Ayurveda for postpartum helped me really zoom in because sometimes when you study just Ayurveda, it's so vast. There's so there's so much to it. And to understand how that really applies to one niche. And for me, that was so present of I want to understand this for postpartum healing because this would change everything for me. And if it could change everything for me, I have a feeling it could change so much for other families. How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session. So understanding that Vata dosha, air and space elements, are increased in postpartum, and understanding what those qualities that are naturally elevated are, and what that looks like when it pushes people past their capacity of depletion, and what can be done to help settle, to help ground, to help calm, to help moisten, to help soothe, to help warm. All of these are things that it was a language of discernment that I started to feel. And what I realize now is that that skill set, that discernment, has guided me through every single stage. And now I'm looking at similar qualities that are coming up for me as I move towards perimenopause. And I'm looking at the qualities as I parent my children. And each of my kids has a very different combination, a very different constitution. And so I can see the qualities that are appropriate for one child not being the same qualities that I need to emphasize in the other. And so this skill set to discern what is needed at each moment is one of the greatest gifts. And that has been strengthened and established and evolved in the past 20 years. And it's a skill set that I still use on a daily basis. The second piece that I want to explore here as a manifestation of 42 days for 42 years is this deepened understanding of the expansion of the subtle body. I guess I didn't phrase that as elegantly as I would like to. But ultimately, we hear a lot about the nervous system. You know, that we all need nervous system regulation, and postpartum, the nervous system is more fragile. There's, so much coming in on a sensory level, and we're easily overwhelmed. And yes to that. But there's something more that goes beyond the nervous system that is deeply linked and integrated and sometimes gets bypassed. And yet it is the piece that actually creates the inner conflict. It's the birthing of ourselves in a new way. It's the transformation of spirit. We can talk about it in sort of etheric or different ways based on the language that feels right for each person. But the way I understand it is this soul shifting, this emerging from something that was into something that's more. And that goes along with nervous system nourishment. And so, yes, while I am learning tools to help regulate my nervous system, I also started to feel this discomfort around what is even happening here? Like, who am I? Am I still supposed to be doing the same things I was doing before? Am I now, like, there was this grasping on to something? And I think over time, the ability to really soften into some incredible trust in spirit, in the universe, in God, in my own divinity, to really be held in the hands of the universe and something greater than myself, that it wasn't up to me to solve it or figure it out. I could simply unfold in the best way that I could in each moment. And that is directly tied to my nervous system regulation. And when I was able to pacify that vata dosha, to rest well, to settle into a space of calm and peace, I was then able to slip into that place of trust and surrender and confidence that I am unfolding at exactly the right place that I need to be. This is a long game. This is not a moment of emergency right now. I can trust. And that has continued to unfold and serve me in so many ways. And I often find people always say to me, "You're so calm, you're so like you're just so relaxed." And I guess to me, like, this is why. Because I have found it necessary to practice literally every day the ability to bring in, now I'm going to bring in these qualities again, because guess what? All of these three things that I'm talking about today are also intertwined. So bringing in the qualities in my subtle body, in my heart space, in my nervous system space. I want the quality of slowness to counterbalance the made up urgency that I sometimes feel. Like, yeah, there will be urgent moments, but the ability to discern, is this an urgent moment or am I creating an urgency that I could transform into something different that is more enjoyable and ultimately more effective? So we're looking at from my Christine lens, which I am grateful for you to be here to help, I guess, me explain this, is it's not just the nervous system. It's a connection, it's a bond with what is sacred to me and what is sacred to you. Thinking about that as you integrate your own ability to regulate with whatever tools you find are supportive to you. And again, this conversation is not about the specific tools. You can find those in a million places. There is a plethora of information out there, which sometimes leads to the exacerbation of this feeling of urgency because there's just too much. We're all sort of drinking from the fire hose here. And so the ability to pause and discern and regulate and then trust that our own connection to universe, to source, to the sacred is here all the time. And by tapping into that, I love my life more. I love my loved ones more. I love myself more. I love my life. The third thing, I'm just going to move into it, that I have found through the impact of the care I received in postpartum that has given me a gift of a continued reminder to be present. And I feel like that's something that is said all the time, but it's probably said because it's 1000% real. I remember after Tejas was born, and he's my second child, and this was the first postpartum window that I was receiving Ayurvedic postpartum care. And I remember sitting in the bed because I had really relegated myself to staying in bed and resting and just holding his little feet. He was like kind of propped up on my knees as I sat in the bed and just holding his little feet and studying them and realizing that there is nothing so beautiful as this very moment. And what is it that's possible in this very moment? And what I see over and over again as I reach back to that moment, that frame of reference, and pull it all the way to literally this morning, I'm realizing that at any given moment, there is an opportunity for deeper connection with self, with source, with love, with family, with friends, with children, with nature. At any given moment, there is an opportunity for deeper connection with purpose. At every single moment, there is an opportunity to bring in presence. And this is the foundation of the Universal Mother principles. We begin with intention, and presence is what holds all of them. But I invite you to take a moment today. Notice the qualities that are in your physical body, in your subtle body, in your mental body, in your emotional body, in your senses. Notice what qualities are preferred and which ones are not. What would you like to bring in? That in itself is a practice of becoming more present. But I've been thinking recently, as my children are moving into these bigger stages, and the gift that children bring us of this ability to play and how time moves slow as a child because you are so present. And those are the qualities that I have learned through parenting, that I have learned through Ayurveda, that I have learned through receiving nourishment. And what happens is when we are well cared for, then our bodies, our minds, our parasympathetic nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system, we're able to access presence. We're able to access the subtle body connection with spirit. So I guess my gift, my hope is that maybe you'll listen to this conversation and maybe you'll find a quieter moment today, or maybe you'll find a moment with your little one and you're walking outside, or you're playing a game, or you're cooking dinner, and all of a sudden you decide to go a little slower and be more present. And you start to notice the qualities in what you're doing. Just last night, as I was doing my bedtime routine, I just know, like, I started to slow down and I realized how much more luscious it was to put the products on my face and to rub my hands and the oil into my hands and to floss my teeth or whatever it was. There's something sacred in every single moment of being alive. So the qualities lead us to the discernment we need to nourish our nervous system, which expands the opportunity to connect with the sacred and to be fully present. You like how I did that there? I tied in all three of those in one sentence. Thank you so much for being here, for giving me the honor of sharing this time with me. And I hope that it has brought something of value to you. I honor all of you so very much and the opportunity to do this work, to be in the presence of such compassion, such kindness, such commitment, and wish me luck as I navigate these tender days of watching my oldest fly. And I'll see you next time.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.